The U.S. sent combat troops into Vietnam in 1965 after Ho Chi Minh took Hanoi, the capital, with his Communist Party. At the same time, America was involved in the Cold War with the Soviet Union, so they were prompted to fight against Minh in order to ally with the Soviet Union's enemy. This deadly war ended with more than 3 million people killed. At the peak of our involvement in the war, the U.S. had more than 500,000 civilians involved in fighting the war. As the war progressed, opposition at home grew. Many Americans were not happy that we were fighting this war and opposed the draft established by President Richard Nixon. In 1965, we transitioned to a lottery system to determine the order of who would be called to fight. Many of the people called to fight were poor and uneducated. In February of 1965, there were about 3,000 protests per month. In October, this number increased to 33,000. When Americans have their civil liberties compromised, they create a large uproar and divide the country. Others were fortunate enough to escape fighting the dreaded war while still contributing to win the war.
And at that time, everybody had to sign up for selective service when you turned 18. He announced that he was sending 500,000 troops to Vietnam. We're going to draft that many people. But even though I was 27 years old, married, and had 2 children, as a physician, I knew I would get drafted. It's called the Berry Plan, after somebody named Mr. Berry in the government. And that meant that if you were a physician and you were going to specialize in whatever, urology or surgery or cardiology, they would allow you to finish your specialty no matter how many years it took. And at the end of that period, you would go into the service and work in your specialty.
Those who had just graduated college and majored in a specific field of science were involved in the Berry Project. My grandfather, Albert Kovetz, graduated medical school in 1965 with a major in neurology. He joined the Air Force and was relocated to North Dakota for 2 years as an officer. He was part of the Doctor Draft, in which he helped domestic goals and cared for wounded soldiers of the war. Taking this job, he was ensured that he would never have to leave America. This was especially appealing considering he had a wife and 2 kids. He described it as having a normal life in North Dakota. He went to work from 9 to 5 on weekends, and he spent time with his family. A soldier's involvement ranges in difficulty and intensity during wartime. There is a clear advantage to those who are educated and the elite in our society. Today, there is no draft in America. I asked my grandpa what his opinions were if our government decided to reinstate a draft.
If you had a draft, then people would be complaining about the war. They would have a lot to say. There were a lot of demonstrations against what's on it. Now, with all the wars that we have, especially mostly in the Middle East, Afghanistan, and Iraq, nobody really complains too much about them because they don't have to go and fight them. Their children don't have to go and fight them because there's no draft. And supposedly all the military men are all volunteers. So they really, if they volunteered, they couldn't complain about going to war because that's what they signed up for.
He continued to explain that there isn't much of a need for soldiers as there were during the Vietnam War. In the wars we fight today, most of it is done using technology, and its contribution will only increase in the future. Also, it is becoming more and more difficult to join some parts of the military. Unlike the Vietnam War, soldiers are more educated and are more passionate about serving our country. Those who fought in Vietnam found themselves in an elitist society in which more educated citizens could still live a normal life while enlisting in the draft.